Good evening and welcome to Loaded Mag in UFC. If you've been watching the intro, we could have done one of those goals from Harvey Barnes against Man City in the league. Obviously, looks like we're saying goodbye to the cup. Hello and welcome to Loaded Mag. This is a reaction show. I'm not going to repeat myself there, Chris, don't worry. Nearly did though. This is a reaction show to Newcastle versus Man City and the first leg in the semi-final of the Carabao Cup. Pete, how are you?
Yeah, just a bit deflated after that one tonight. Got to be honest, a little bit deflated. Obviously, semi-final, big occasion, and it just wasn't our night tonight. For lots of reasons that I'm sure we'll get into as the show goes on. So I won't talk about it too much. But yeah, just deflated right now. Chris, how are you?
Yeah, a bit same as yourself, really, mate. Just a little bit disappointed. I'm frustrated, I think would be my word. Because as much as it probably should have been 2-0, given one of the disallowed goals, at the same time, I feel like we were good for the goal. Maybe more. Which is disappointing. But yeah, on a personal level, I am good, mate. I'm good. Dazzler, how are you doing?
Yeah, you know what? I'm not pissed off, but I'm disappointed. I'm not pissed off because we've gone on a run of winning 4 games, and it is Man City we're playing here. But it's just disappointed that we know going to the Etihad, we need 3 goals to have any kind of a chance, and you know what are they going to do as well? So yeah, but apart from that, all good. Very, very busy. Let's get into the game. Welcome, chatters, as well. For anyone joining us late to look at to discuss this game, smash that like button as well while you're at it. Why not? Right, let's look at the team news. This is the team news for Newcastle. Barnes on the bench, Murphy in, Tonali on the bench, Ramsey in, Dan Burn in the studio. What did you make the lineup, boys? Pete, we'll go to you first.
Yeah, few surprises in there. No Tonali, no Barnes. I was a bit shocked, as if to say, what? Like, Barnes, our top scorer in fine form. Tonali played well against Bournemouth. Why has he put them on the bench? And then you remember that they played 120 minutes on Saturday, and Barnes did 103 against Leeds in midweek, and clearly it's taken its toll. And I'll be honest with you, lads, tonight I think that's what it was. I think the game's just gone one too far with some of these players. These players look shattered, and thinking about it before the game, I could understand it. Although I was disappointed that both of those players didn't start, I could understand why they weren't in the team, because we've got a lot of games and players are playing a lot of minutes, and we're already in a position where some of these lads have played probably too many minutes more than they should have. And we have got to manage this squad, because we've already seen by Tino Livramento, just takes one injury and it can completely change your season. So, yeah, that was my overriding feeling just with those 2 players, really. Everything else is much of a muchness, if I'm being honest.
Chris, any surprises for you?
I wouldn't say I was surprised by any, and merely for what Pete's mentioned there, lots of games coming thick and fast. Obviously, the extra long time that we had in the previous game. So yeah, I wouldn't say I was surprised. The only thing that I maybe was a little bit concerned over was the midfield 3. I think I put that in the group, didn't I? Because, for me, the only natural number 6s that we've got Sandro Tonali and Louis Miley, and obviously seeing Bruno in the number 6 did concern me a little bit. And also, as we've spoken about quite a lot on this channel, we have a lot of we have an abundance of left central midfielders in Joe Willock, Joe Linton and Jacob Ramsey, and I was looking at it thinking, well, one of them must be playing right centre mid, so I assumed it would probably be Jacob Ramsey. And my other thought was maybe Joe Linton's in the number 6. And, you know, we've spoken about that for the last few years on the channel, haven't we? Saying maybe try Joe Linton in the 6. Obviously, Eddie Howe's never done that, and there's probably good reason. Maybe more, you know, maybe it's something to do with tactical nous. I don't know. But yes, that was my only real concern. In terms of the other changes, I wasn't really shocked or disappointed or surprised, because ultimately minutes have to be managed, don't they? You know, we've got a big game coming up on Sunday, so I wasn't, you know, overly surprised. I think it was more just around how our midfield three would look tonight. That's probably my biggest, you know, I can't even think of the words. My biggest observation before the game kicked off.
Yeah, I agree with what your boys are saying, and yeah, the extra time kind of has killed us here as well going into this game. But look, let's go through the game. And go through the first half, and we'll stop at half time. Great display again as always by Wor Flags, doing us proud. Formats: Wissa through, Gordon ball out to Murphy with the ball across to Wissa. He should have at least tested the keeper. The ball kind of did bobble up as he slightly as he hit it. Man City down our right, trying to cause problems. Both sides pressing well. 14 minutes, J7 header from distance wide. 23 minutes, Popey goes down. That can only mean one thing. Do a quick chat for Eddie Howe and the squad. And the new set of boots for Anthony Gordon. Pope is right as rain. It's a miracle. We all know at this stage that's what's happening. Even commentary team know at this stage. The Murphy ball across seems to be our only way in at present. 28 minutes, stray elbow on Bruno, but it's okay. That came from O'Reilly. 2 minutes later, J7 never forgets the bodyguard. And cards ensue, and O'Reilly and J7 get the card. Man City trying to take out Hall whenever possible. He was getting some joy, but they were taking him out every time he did. 44 minutes, Murphy down holding his hamstring. On comes Harvey Barnes, strips off, ready to come on. That took us to half time and was pretty cagey that first half. Yes, I missed some of the pictures along the way and the handbags. But yeah, half time. Boys, Pete, I'll go to you first. Thoughts on the first half?
Yeah, it was okay. I have to be honest, I thought we'd start a little bit more fast-paced. I thought we'd start with a little bit more intensity, with a little bit more press. So in the Mags chat, we'll talk about that as well. It was very much standoffish, very much low block, sitting. I don't think the fans needed that. I think the fans needed something to get behind, because from what I was watching, it was quite flat very quickly after the start. We had Wor Flags, everything you talked about, Daz, and it was up, and then very quickly it was flat, because we'd started sort of on the back foot. And I didn't expect that from Newcastle, because in big games, in big moments, we start fast, we start quick, and we didn't tonight. And that maybe played into Man City's hands better than it did ours, because already the crowd were down, and Man City were able to just pop the ball about and pin us back into our area. We did press well at times, and we did break well on the counter. Jacob Murphy had a lot of the ball in that wide area, put a couple of good balls in, few offsides from Wissa. He needed to take that chance. That chance in the first couple of minutes was absolutely crucial. He puts that away, and it's a completely different story. Everything that I'm saying is redundant at that point. If that ball goes in the net, the crowd are up, the fans are up, we'll probably going at them to try and get a second goal. It's a different story. You've got to take your chances. But he's not had a rhythm of football, really. He's not really played a lot of football regularly, so he's still finding his feet. And I'm sure when he's up playing regular football, he'll put that ball in the back of the net. But we did have a couple of moments. I just want to single out a couple of players in the first half. In particular, because they had a better first half maybe than second. I thought Lewis Hall was sensational. I thought he was so good.
Unbelievable. I thought he was unbelievable.
He's class.
with the ball at his feet. For two reasons. One, because he handled Antoine Semenyo so well. Physically, he kept stride to stride with him. But ultimately, when he won the ball back, the way he was able to just glide past him and start attacks and drift into the middle of the pitch, it really gave us an outlet. And he was the only one that was trying to drive us forward, getting the ball and willing to take on men and go forward. There was from a lot of players, they jink forward and then turn back and just play the safety ball. He was willing to play risk football. And at the top end, you do need a risk player, and he is absolutely that. And I have to say, I thought Joe Linton played really well. I thought he embodied everything that we needed in that game. He was aggressive, he was physical, and he got stuck in. I actually felt for tonight, that was the best I've seen him on the ball. There was some lovely one-touch football. He was able to lay off, particularly in the first half, and keep the ball ticking over. I thought he was good. I thought it was harsh on his yellow card, if I'm being honest with you. But I think that was a tactic from Man City. Ride him up, get him an early yellow, make him play on the edge a little bit. I thought those two were by far standouts in terms of performers. Maybe a third, Sven Botman. Thought Sven Botman had a really good first half. Some of the balls he was playing inside to Alanga, inside to Joe Linton was just first class. He was very, very good. So you're coming off the back of that first half and you're thinking, not quite the performance we'd expect, but we're still in it and there's still an opportunity there to get something. And so you go into that second half a little bit hopeful.
Chris, your thoughts on the first half?
Yeah, just disappointed, really. I've got to admit that Pete's already talked about it, that Yoane Wissa chance in the first few minutes. I really struggle with that one because it was such a big opportunity. It wasn't even, I'd love to see the XG on that, because for me, he's got to hit the target. He has to hit the target. I think it's on his weaker foot, but he takes a reasonably good touch. I think the commentator said like his touch could have been better. I didn't have too much issue with his first touch. It was the second touch, which was the shot, that I had the problem with. I just thought, come on, you've got to hit that on target. Pete's right in the sense that, he needs a bit of time. He needs to, settle into it, get into his rhythm and get into his game. But, against Man City, you've got to take chances like that. You have to. You're not going to get many of those chances. And ultimately, that's what we've proved. I was really disappointed with that, I've got to be honest, because that would have really set the tone, would have got the crowds up, would have put us in the front position. Hopefully, we wouldn't have sat in then. We'd have, pushed on and tried to get a second and, really carry a bit of momentum, but disappointed. Lewis Hall, had to touch on him. Lewis Hall, I thought was outstanding, absolutely outstanding. He's slowly creeping his way up to becoming my favourite player, minus the obvious surname link. I just thought he was brilliant. I just thought he was absolutely brilliant, and he's so positive, and he shields the ball really well. He goes on the half turn. He's asking questions of players, even in tight position. He reminds me a little bit of Bruno tonight. He's asking for the ball in tight positions. Doesn't faze him. Does not faze him. And you think he's going to do the simple pass, and sometimes he just drops his shoulder, turns the other way, and all of a sudden we're on the attack. I thought he was brilliant. Sven Botman, Pete, you're right. Has a really, really solid. I thought he handled Erling Haaland really well, really, really well. It was a physical battle, which you always have with Erling Haaland. But there's a couple of occasions where he's giving him a little shove. He's letting him know he's there. He's letting him know he's in a physical battle, and I thought that was great. I saw a lot more of the old Sven Botman, or the one that we all know and love. Some great passing, as you mentioned, Pete. Really, really great passing, breaking those lines, putting us on the front foot. So yeah, those two players in Lewis Hall and Sven Botman were probably the standouts for me, particularly first half. But yeah, overall, I was a little bit despondent, but still hopeful, because obviously, it was 0-0. We were still very much in the game, although I don't know, I had that nagging feeling, boys, we were going to rue some of those missed opportunities. Because I would say we looked the better team in that first half. I know a few people in the chat are saying, City didn't get out of second gear. City were playing a weak back four. I can't argue with that. Obviously, they were playing Trafford rather than Donnarumma. But they've still got a very good team. Do you know what I mean? They've still, attacking wise, they've still got a very, very good team. But I think City's first shot, not even shot on target, I think it was at the back end of the first half, and it's probably being generous calling it a shot. I think it was from Nathan Aki, and it went about 40 yards in the air. That was their first shot. So we'd really restricted them. Whenever we lost possession, we sat in deep. We had that back five kind of protecting. So one of the midfielders drop in to create a back five, then the four, and then we had Yoane Wissa just sitting on the edge of the box. I thought we defended really, really well in that first half, but I was just disappointed that when we had the opportunity to break, when we got forward, we just weren't quite there. And there was a few misplaced passes. I think there was one in the first half where Yoane Wissa could have played, I forget who it was. Was it Anthony Gordon, maybe? And it was just completely the wrong ball. And so, yeah, I was frustrated, a little bit disappointed, and a little bit despondent, thinking City are going to crank this up second half. And while it's 0-0, you've always got that worry, because as we know, it's a two-legged fixture, and really we wanted to leave St James's Park tonight with, you know, an advantage, and unfortunately that wasn't the case.
I think they would have even taken the draw tonight. They would be happy with that. Chris, I would not like to see the XG. I'm not a big XG fan. It'd probably be 5-2 to us in the tie if it was. If it was to look at it.
I mean the XG on that chance. I'd love to know what the XG was on that chance.
I know.
Yeah.
I know what you meant. I was only joking.
Yeah.
Right, 48 minutes. Say into the second half. Saved by Pope. Kind of came off Gordon, but there was a push in the build-up anyway. 49 minutes. Saved by Trafford. Wissa connecting with the Gordon cross. His header was kind of heading towards top bins. Straight after that, Bruno with the follow-up, and he hits the post. Newcastle unlucky not to be ahead. 2 minutes later, Semenyo scores as the ball is whipped across by Doku, touched by Bernardo Silva to make it 1-0. That rule change has come back to cost us with Semenyo being able to start. Boys, any thoughts on Semenyo's goal?
Yeah, just, I mean, from City's point of view, it's a good goal. It's a really well worked goal. From our point of view, I'm disappointed that Doku's got down that side as easily as he did. He didn't get cut out. We had a knack. There was a couple in the first half that I thought were just letting him get by us a little bit too easy, and get balls into the box. And it's a great ball. A ball that you don't want to be defending, a ball that's coming right across your box with pace. Keeper can't get down and out quick enough. Defenders are scared to put a foot on the ball because it could potentially go in their own net. And Semenyo's there, and it's disappointing. Not sure who was marking him at the back post, but he seemed to glide in there very, very easy to tap that home. So that was disappointing in itself. But was I surprised by it? Probably not, because I think it was coming. Man City were starting to push a little bit more, starting to ask a few more questions of Newcastle. And I've got to be honest, and it goes back to my original point, some of the lads, even at that point, started to look tired. They started to look tired. Some of the recovery runs, some of the tracking back, some of the movements to track players that they were doing excellently in the first half just started to drop off a little bit, and people's concentration drops off. And it goes back to playing so much football. Players are tired. We said exactly the same thing happened against Leeds with Malik Chow. When you've played so much football, that fatigue kicks in, and you start to slow down, and you start to then make mistakes, and your normal levels of concentration drop off. And in that moment, that's what it seemed like it happened. And yeah, advantage City at that point, because their tails were right up, and you could feel, even watching it on TV, you could feel the deflation coming into the stadium. You could feel it. The fans knew at that point we had to get the first goal. So yeah, very, very disappointed.
Chris, thoughts on Semenyo's first?
Yeah. Do you know what? The way I'd sum it up, and maybe some people will disagree with this, I felt like it was a bit unlucky. And the reason I say that is because I've watched it back a few times. Obviously, Harvey Barnes is up against Doku. Doku's not the easiest person. We saw Doku get a little bit of joy against Louis Miley, who's been absolutely fantastic. And I think Louis Miley did his very best to deal with him on this occasion. Doku's up against Harvey Barnes, who obviously, as we know, isn't a player, used to that position, if you like. So he gets a yard on him anyway, which, as I say, he could do that against most players in the Premier League because he's so quick, and his turn of foot is alarming. Really, that's he can beat anybody in a 5-10 yards sprint if he knocks the ball past them. The reason I say that I think it's a bit unlucky is when just before when Doku's being fronted up by Barnes, Bruno's on Bernardo Silva. He's kind of picked him up. Now you can see that we're a little bit light in the box. So Bruno has a little look over the shoulder and thinks, you know what, I'll drop in, which I don't really have a problem with because at that point, Bernardo Silva isn't really affecting anything. Bernardo Silva makes a run into the box now. Where, like I say, it's unlucky is Bernardo Silva goes in. Now, 9 times out of 10, boys, Bernardo Silva makes a connection with that and it just goes out for the goal kick. But it just changes the direction of the ball. Now, when the direction of the ball changes and it still fizzes into the box, you can see all our players lined up. So if that ball doesn't get hit by Bernardo Silva, we're clearing that all day, every day. It's not an issue. I actually didn't have a problem with even the positions of where we were, when the ball came in. But because it took that nick and because it went maybe half a yard above where it should have, unfortunately, Antoine Semenyo reacts quickest. Now, as Pete mentioned, I'm not sure myself, actually, who was marking Semenyo. But he gets that half a yard and then he nips in. But the reason I say it's unlucky is because 9 times out of 10, that ball doesn't change direction and go into that area. So when it went in, I was expecting it. It was a bit like, oh, here we go. Kind of saw that coming. But me other side of me was going. But in fairness, maybe it's a bit over dramatic to call it a freak goal. But if you replay that scenario, 9 times out of 10, the ball doesn't go in that area. It genuinely doesn't, because Bernardo Silva probably gets too heavy a touch and then it just goes out for the goal kick. Or Bernardo Silva doesn't get the touch and it just goes into the box as it should have. And we'd have just cleared it, no problem. Like, with the way we were set up, it was fine. It was just the fact that Antoine Semenyo reacted quickest, got that half a yard and then just poked it in. So I wasn't annoyed by it in terms of, oh, we should have defended that better. That was shit. It wasn't that. It was just the fact I thought, yeah. That's all I felt about it.
I think it could have been Gordon tracking Semenyo, but I'm not 100% sure. Look, didn't Newcastle need to find a way to get back into this tie? Surprisingly enough.
Before you go, that's an important point here from Geordie Team for Life. Ramsey was off the pitch. We were down to 10 men.
Yes.
So Ramsey would have been marking Doku probably more so than Barnes, because the midfielders were doubling up with the fullbacks in most parts of the game. So therefore, that could have potentially changed it. So, good spot there from Geordie Team for Life, and probably the biggest talking point of that goal of them all. So,
and as you say, Pete, it's a great point, because where Bruno's had that little indecision: do I go with Bernardo? Do I drop in? What do I do? If you had the extra man on the field, maybe we're surmising here, but maybe Jacob Ramsey would have tucked in and been that player at the back, and Bruno would have then pushed Bernardo Silva, and then that doesn't happen. It's all ifs, buts, and maybes, isn't it? But it's a good point from Geordie Team for Life.
And it was Barnes' first shot at defending that Doku at that stage as well, because Murphy had just come off just before halftime. So, by the way, look, it doesn't matter. We're one behind at this stage. Until 62 minutes, when Semenyo makes a 2, or does he? Because he does poke it home, but a VAR check that went on for 5 minutes pointed towards the referee for an on-field review. In the end, it says Holland is offside, and he's kind of interfering with Malik Chow there. Is this our lifeline? We definitely got lucky that this one didn't count, boys. Thoughts on this one?
We absolutely got lucky. And I'll be honest with you, I was watching the VAR, I was thinking, I don't really know what they're looking for here, because I didn't think there was anything wrong with the goal, if I'm being honest with you. If that was us on the opposite end of that, I'd be fuming that was ruled out. I'd be absolutely fuming that was ruled out, because there was no way that Pope was getting there to stop the cross. There was no way Pope was going to get down to make the save. The ball came in too quick. It had too much whip on it. It had too much pace from the it looked like a knee that it came off from Antoine Semenyo. And there was no way that the goalkeeper was stopping it. I mean, they said it was an offside. And if that's the case, fine. I don't particularly agree with that rule anyway, but it was absolutely a lifeline. And I was just relieved that it wasn't 2-0 at that point. And at that point, I was thinking to myself, we just need to go for it now. We just need to just go for it and just take risks, throw men forward, get balls into the box, and hope we can try and nick something at the end. And to be fair to us, that's what we tried to do. We tried to do it after that point. We did pump the ball forward. We did try and ask a few more questions of Man City towards the end. But yeah, absolutely a lifeline. Very, very lucky. And yeah, if that happened to us on Sunday against Wolves, I'd be absolutely fuming.
Chris, I think you're on the same page as well. We got lucky on the Semenyo second.
Like massively lucky. Massively lucky. It was a goal. Simple as. I mean, VAR spent a hell of a long time looking at it. And the longer that it went on, I was thinking they're looking for something. They're clearly looking for something here to try and rule this out, because I think the final decision was offside and it was Erling Haaland's. And apparently Erling Haaland's was somehow stopping Pope from coming out. I tell you what, he spared Nick Pope's blushes tonight, because Erling Haaland was nowhere near Nick Pope, as you can see from the picture. He's actually got Malik Chow in between the two of them. Nick Pope came out like a salmon jumping out of the water, and he's nowhere near the ball, nowhere near it. And
he's more starfish there, Chris.
Yeah, it is more of a starfish, you're right. But yeah, he's nowhere near the ball. And I don't see how Nick Pope's actions were changed or affected by Erling Haaland's. I just don't see it. So, you know, as we always credit ourselves on this channel, boys, if you know, it's not all black and white glasses. If we see some, if we call, you know, we all love football and we all call it as it is, and now we see it. There was nothing wrong with that goal. There was nothing wrong with that. It should have been 2-0. It really should. But as Pete rightly said, it was a lifeline. It was an opportunity for us. We'll take it. But unfortunately, we didn't capitalise. But yeah, if I was a Man City fan, I wouldn't have been happy about that.
Well, then that did boost the atmosphere inside James's Park, and the roar was up then from the crowd. 68 minutes, Wissa off, Nick Woltemade on, Ramsey off, Tonali on, Gordon off, Elanga on, as Elanga swapping over with Barnes on the wings then as well. J7 calling Bernardo Silva a little baby was the highlight for me. Right, 69 minutes, Tonali with a shot from distance wide. 76 minutes, Lewis Hall puts his body in the line to block Bernardo Silva's shot. Then City were kind of toying with us, and they were in total control, slowing it down, and even a bit of time wasting. 80 minutes, Pope save from Rayan Cherki. 83 minutes, Barnes puts Big Nick in, a bit too slow though, and he does take a touch. Nothing came of that. 84 minutes, Pope out to take the ball off Reinders. 86 minutes, Pope out again to clear his lines from Haaland. 86 minutes again, then so Bruno off, trips on. 89 minutes, Miley nearly got it back to Big Nick at a kind of a 1-2 nearly there. 92 minutes, Pope save from Bernardo Silva again. 93 minutes, Big Nick Woltemade diving header, but fails to connect to the cross from Barnes. Newcastle keep pushing. Big Nick almost in on 95 minutes, but who was in Rayan Cherki. He basically knocked us out of the cup. A great little 1-2 with your mates, Chris. Ryan Aït-Nouri and Rayan Cherki combined well. I know you championed a lot for us to bring both of those lads in. 2-0 in the first leg. A massive mountain to be climbed to get anywhere near Wembley. Final result. Any last comments? Pete, we'll go to you first.
So I was just listening to Eddie Howe's press conference. Just disappointed. It feels like, and I tweeted out, it feels like it's Mount Everest now. To climb that climb of 2-0 down at the Etihad, where we historically go and don't do very well. It just feels like a step too far for Newcastle United. But we live in hope. We live in hope that there's a chance that something will happen. But yeah, it feels like it's really, really far away. I just wanted to mention about a couple of chances. One in particular, there was one with Nick Woltemade. When the ball comes in, I think it might even be a 1-2 with Harvey Barnes.
I think it was Barnes, mate.
Comes into the box. And I don't understand why he's not hitting it first time. The lad, when he gets into these positions, he wants 3-4 touches. You ain't getting that. You're certainly not getting that in the Premier League. You've got to take your opportunity when it comes to. It literally comes to him with just the goalkeeper to beat. And even if it comes on his weaker foot, his left foot, you've just got to swing at it. You've got to swing and hope that it hits the target. Because taking a touch and trying to then work it back onto his right, where two Man City defenders were coming across and just kind of whip the ball away from him, it's a chance wasted. It's a chance wasted. It was a nice bit of football as well from the lads. It was really nice. Barnes come on and looked lively, played really well in those attacking areas. And I just think, we need to work on that with him. If they're not already, they need to. He needs to be able to be a snap shooter. Those opportunities aren't going to come into the box where you take 2 or 3 touches. He needs to be getting that ball, and as soon as it falls anywhere in the box and it's open, he needs to be smashing that towards goal. He needs to be doing that more. And look, I have to say, when he came on, I thought he did all right. He was physical. He actually won some headers, some duels for once, an area of his game that hasn't been good the last 5 or 6 that he's played. He won a few aerial duels. He was physical. He was putting himself around. He was getting himself into the box. He was making himself a threat. So there was elements of Nick Woltemade's game that I thought was actually okay. But we need him to put the ball in the net. And when he gets an opportunity like that, just like Wissa, for example, you've got to put something on it. You've got to make the keeper work there, because I've got to be honest, other than the Wissa chance that he manages to make a great save by and tips it over the bar in the second half, other than that, Trafford hasn't really had loads to do. The shot from Bruno hit the post. He didn't make the save. But yeah, he didn't have loads to do in the game. And I just would have liked him to be worked more. And that was one moment, particularly in the second half, that I think we could have really asked some questions of James Trafford, and we didn't. And again, like the Wissa chance, we may well be made to rue those opportunities, because those 2 opportunities get swung and hit the target and hopefully go in, and it's a different story, it's a different game. Now, even at, I think at that point it was still 1-0, so it would have been 1-1. The game changes, it opens up, it has a completely different complexion to it, and we're sitting here with over 500 people watching right now, having a very, very different conversation about the game. When the chances come, we've got to be making the goalkeeper work.
Chris, any final thoughts of the game?
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? I keep seeing the same comment coming up in the chat, and that's fine margins. And tonight was fine margins. I feel our attackers have let us down tonight, in the sense that, 2 really big opportunities. Pete's just touched on the Woltemade one. I completely agree, Pete. When the ball gets fizzed in, it was a good ball. He's got to miss it straight away. And then obviously the first few minutes when Jacob Murphy gets that early cross in, Yoane Wissa, decent touch, hit the target. Even if James Trafford makes a great save, you go, all right, but hit the target. Ask a question of Trafford. 2 big moments. And then obviously there was the Nick Woltemade header, which, well, it didn't turn out to be a header because he didn't get his head on it. I can't be too critical of that. But again, it was close. It was close. Maybe he could have leapt a little bit earlier. I don't know. But, given that he's 6'6", 6'7", maybe it was just a little bit too high. I don't know. But yeah, just the key phrase for me and many in the chat is, fine margins. because, you know, we spoke about the first goal and the fact that, you know, Bernardo Silva gets that odd touch on it, changes the direction of the ball. Antoine Semenyo reacts quicker. The Wissa chance, the Woltemade chance, and then the second goal. Yeah, it's just frustration more than anything, because even though I'm saying it wasn't a 2-0 game, I don't mean that as in City didn't deserve it, because I think they probably did. It was more just the fact that, you know, it could have been different. It wasn't. I didn't come away from that game and think, oh, we've been terrible. Oh, we didn't. You know, there was no effort there. Oh, we should have done better. Oh, it's none of that. It's just the fact that I think the players this evening will be thinking, oh, could have got something there. Really could have got something there. And I think that's the overarching feeling. I'm just a bit despondent, but it wasn't for the lack of trying, and it wasn't. I wouldn't even necessarily say the lack of quality across the whole team. I think it was a lack of quality in certain key moments, which can happen. It can happen. A few people in the chat saying, you know, we need a proper striker. You know, we need an out and out striker. We need someone who's going to, you know, gobble up those chances. You could argue that. But then other people are saying, you know, Yoane Wissa, obviously still catching up in terms of his fitness. Nick Woltemade, is he a natural 9? Is he more a 10? It is fine margins, boys. That's what it is. It's just fine margins at the moment. But one thing it did tell me, and particularly with the news that came in the last 48 hours, is that I do hope Newcastle go and try and do a bit of business this January, because I do think we need it just to push us that little bit further. Because you can tell as well, boys, by the way, how far we have come. And I know people hate hearing or seeing that line. You will have all seen how Pep Guardiola reacted when that second goal went in. He went bananas. And it's because I think he knew that the tie was kind of done. But it was also because I think he knew he had a bit of a game on his hands. Yes, they rotated. Yes, they probably didn't play the strongest 11, but they knew they were in for the game tonight, and coming to St James's Park isn't easy. So the fact they've come away with a 2-0 win is a good result for them, a very good result for them, because they've got one foot in the final, haven't they? But yeah, just a bit. I hate using the phrase disappointed, but I am disappointed. I am disappointed because obviously I wanted us to retain the trophy this year, but it now looks like an uphill battle if we want to do that, because we've got to go to the Etihad and we've got to at least match them for 2 goals, well, 2-goal lead, or 3 if we want to try and win it. But I think it's going to be difficult, boys. I think it's going to be very difficult.
And then some, I think, Chris. Right, maybe we'll go to some comments and questions from the chatters.
Okay, right. Let's have a nose, boys. So, let's see, where shall I start? Oh, okay, I'll come to that one a bit later. Jeff Barlow makes a comment, but I'm gonna ask you boys about it. Pete, I'll come to you first. Jeff Barlow says, "I liked what I saw from Ramsey today. Much improved."
I thought he played well. I thought he played well in the first half. I thought he linked really well in that midfield. It's really weird, but I was actually quite pleased with his defensive work. I thought he really shielded on that right hand side with Miley quite well at times. I thought he covered Murphy when Murphy wasn't quite getting back at times as well. And I like how comfortable he is on the ball. He's comfortable on the ball. He wanted the ball under pressure. He was able to turn with the ball at his feet, a little bit like Hall, turn into tight spaces and still come out with the ball and be able to drive us forward. He didn't do as much as Hall, but he did it on a few occasions. And I'm talking particularly in the first half. And I thought he did well. I thought he faded in the second half, but there was a lot of players that faded in the second half, so don't hold him against that too much. But I saw signs. I saw signs that he was getting better. And that's what we want to see. We want to see signs of improvement. And we're definitely getting that from Ramsey. But let's be honest, Ramsey's probably played a lot more football recently. So maybe that's why we're seeing signs of him making improvement. So he'll be, he would have been happy to have that start tonight in a big game, semi-final against Man City. And I think, to a point, he rose to that occasion. But again, we need more of that. If he's going to start again against Wolves or wherever, we need to see more of that, more. I want to see more risk taking from certain players. I want to see players taking a little bit more of a risk. So Jacob Ramsey, I want to see him drive forward and really get us to the 18-yard line and play that final pass that creates an opportunity and hopefully a goal. I want to see that little bit more from him in the attacking areas. I want to see him shoot. The guy used to score against us for Villa, and he can put the ball in. He hasn't scored a massive amount. The goals that he has scored are good goals when he was at Villa. So we know he can put the ball in the net. I want to see him take some shots. I want to see him take more shots from the edge of the area, not just try and work it in for the side pass into the box, tap in, etc. We know we can do that well, but just add something different to our game. Just ask a different question to the opposition. So that's kind of what I want to see from him, but definitely a much improved performance for sure.
Do you feel the same, Daz?
Very similar to Pete, what Pete said there, because I said it in the Bournemouth reaction. I thought he played well there, and I think he's step up again tonight. He didn't give away the ball so much. I think it was once I remember him giving the ball away. He did link up well, and I think as Peter said, some extra bit of confidence, and he will take a shot or he will play that ball through. He retained the ball well, so I think it's a good alternative for us to have either on the bench or while we need to rest someone. So it's slowly coming together for him. It's been a while, but yeah.
Excuse me, Iron Monkey. Sorry, I'm thinking of Mike Tyson there. Iron Monkey says Gordon fell asleep at the back post. He's not a defender, but Christ. So I think he's referring to the Semenyo goal, the first goal. So yeah, it must have been Gordon who was marking Semenyo on that back post. Let me see.
Really quickly. I actually thought Gordon played well tonight. I don't know if anyone in the chat's been saying anything about Gordon, but I actually thought he did well. Out of our front three, I thought he played the best out of the three. I thought he was. You know what I liked? I saw that energy about him tonight. He was back and forth. He was really tactically astute. So his protection of Lewis Hall against Semenyo was really, really good in the first half. He knew what his responsibilities were, so he was very quick to get back in and recover and get back in and help Lewis on a number of occasions. We didn't see the best of him from attacking areas, but I just thought he played well because Man City had a lot of the ball in the first half. But I thought his defensive responsibilities were very good, and he tried to get forward. There was a couple of balls that Murphy had on the right-hand side, and you could see from the screen that Gordon's bolting it to try and get to that back post. And there was a couple of times where Murphy tried to find him and would have found him, but defender gets a nick off it, goes out for a corner, etc., etc. But yeah, I thought he was okay. I think there's a run of form now the last three games where we've seen Gordon play better, which is good because he's putting decent performances in consistency. We just need that to continue, and hopefully the goals and assists will come. So I didn't think he played too bad tonight.
Yeah, no, I thought, yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Pete. I think Anthony Gordon was, from an attacking point of view, Anthony Gordon was probably our strongest player. I think you're spot on saying that. Talking of attacking players, Dazzler, Mikey G says Woltemade's form is gone. Do you agree with that? Do you think it's now that he's chopping and changing, sharing his minutes with Yoane Wissa? What do you think's affecting Nick Woltemade at the minute?
His form was gone before Wissa came back as well. Like he started really well. We threw him in the deep end. He was our only striker we had, playing as a number 9, which I don't think he's a number 9. But it was actually working. He was causing some havoc. Ironically, now that he's sharing the load with Wissa, it hasn't always worked out. But he did well in that Bournemouth game, but he's kind of playing in the number 10 position then, and linking up play. He kind of. I suppose when you're watching Wissa, right? And you're watching the first half of the game with Wissa and Murphy playing the ball in, and you the pace of Wissa, and then you switch to Nick Woltemade. It's a different style, but it's kind of a bit frustrating. You want him to be able to run as fast as Wissa, let's say, and that's not his game. I don't think we're playing to his strengths, and it's going to take time for that to work. And maybe it will only ever work if we have a change in system to get the best out of him.
Pete, what are your thoughts on Nick Woltemade's form at the moment, or maybe in the past few weeks? You could argue.
I think I said it on Saturday. Saturday was the best I've seen Nick Woltemade play. Yeah, that number 10. That's the best I've seen him play, and it just confirmed it to me that is his position. I've not seen him look as comfortable. I've not seen him look as happy. I've not seen him get as much of the ball as he did on Saturday, and therefore he got the assist for Barnes. He was creating things. He was linking the play. He looked freer. He looked freer in the way in which he played because he knew he had Yoane Wissa in front of him, so he didn't have to then make those 30-yard dashes to get in line with the two centre-backs. That he was able to play his football, keep the ball knitted, let it continue on, and he could kind of just glide into little pockets of areas and play. And when he plays up front, it's not the same. I mean, tonight actually was probably a perfect scenario for him to come on because, yes, he's not that guy as a striker, but actually he became a target man. He became a target for us. So we would pump it long. He would get on the end of it, which he did tonight, and he held the ball up and he made things happen and knitted a few things together, and he looked decent. I don't think he played bad when he came on. He missed a couple of chances that I think could have done better with, but he actually played okay, and he actually made us more of a threat up front because you could tell the centre-backs really had a battle on their hands when he was on the pitch. But in general, his form has dipped, and the reason being is because he's not playing every minute. And some players need to play all the time to get their rhythm. Some players struggle to be one in, one out, constant rotation. And it seems like he's that. It seems like although it was a lot for him and he was very tired at times when he was playing every single minute, I think it actually helped his rhythm by playing every game and knowing what he needed to do and kind of being in that moment all the time. Because ultimately what we're doing is we're playing a certain way when Wissa's on the pitch because he offers us something on the kind of on the last line. He's the one on the edge, and you can tell by his offsides that he's on the cusp of it. He's a risk footballer. He plays on that line, and he's constantly asking questions of his centre backs from behind them and wanting balls in and behind. And then Wissa comes off, and Nick Woltemade comes on, and then we're literally having to play a completely different way because he doesn't play that way. And you could see tonight when Nick Woltemade came on, we still played those balls in and behind, and it was like Nick Woltemade is never getting onto them. And you can see he's trying and he's giving his all and he's running at full pelt to try and get onto it, but it's just not the same. And it's no slant on him whatsoever, but it's like, hold on, that we've got to play a different way. If you're going to bring him on, we've got to play a different way. We've got to then play balls into his feet. We've got to then link the play. We've got to move it. And eventually we started to do that. We started to pump it right into him, onto his chest or onto his head. He then play it into his feet and try and link it that way. But it was almost like we needed those first few minutes to go, which way are we playing now? We're playing Wissa way, we're playing Nick Woltemade way. I think, we turned it around in the end and he did okay. Should have scored. Probably could have got 2. Was very unlucky. But he's this is what we will be now unless he gets a run of 3 or 4 games in a row. This is what we'll be. It will be in and out type football. Impact player, 1 minute, starting the next, and we're still figuring it out. Boys, I'll be honest with you, I think it's going to take the season. I think it's going to take the season to really get to grips of what we actually want from Nick Woltemade. And I know we haven't got the season to do that, but I genuinely think it's probably going to take this year, this season, to actually get him to where we want him to be.
But you know what, Pete? I can live with that if you're telling me next season he's on fire and we're playing to his strengths, and we can alternate when Wissa's on the pitch to his strengths and when Nick Woltemade is on the pitch, because that's something to look forward to. But I don't know if we're going to get there.
I agree with you, Des. I'm not sure. I don't know whether it's going to click. And look, that's why Eddie Howe gets paid the big bucks and we don't, because he's going to have to find a way. He's going to have to find a way to make it work. Some people put in the chat, just as we started this conversation, about it being a panic buy, and maybe it was, and it probably was, because we're getting towards the end of the window. We knew, who was going to leave, or the club did at the time anyway. But my point is that we've got him now. We've got him, and we need to make it work. And they need to find a way to get him into that team, because there's no doubt about it. He's a quality player. Technically, he's brilliant. Big physical player, knows how to score goals. I just think we need to just find a way of getting him playing, even if it's bringing players in that fit his style, so we can play two styles of football. And we've got players that can play his style and players that can play Yoane Wissa's style. But I won't bet against you, lads, that we go and get a third striker. Not necessarily this month, but don't be surprised if we go next season and we get a third striker and we see Nick Woltemade playing in the number 10 a little bit more often.
Two quick questions, and it was going to be one, but I've got two now off the back of that comment, Pete. So the first question, I'll go to you first, Pete. The first question is, that third striker you're talking about, I'm assuming, and I could be wrong, but I'm assuming that you're not suggesting we're going for a third striker who's going to be third in the rung, if you like. I've seen people in the comments saying Yoane Wissa is the Callum Wilson replacement. Nick Woltemade is very much not the Alexander Isak replacement. He was in terms of monetary, but maybe not necessarily in terms of, what he brings to this team, i.e. being a 10, could be utilised in that 9, but week in, week out, it's probably not going to be a thing. So my question to you, Pete, is, do you think that if we were to move on the likes of Willa Sula and bring that money into the bank, are we going to be bringing somebody in who's going to be really fighting for that number 1 position as the number 9? Is that what you believe?
I think the only way we get the very best of Nick Woltemade, we utilise him to his absolute maximum, is if we employ a system that was very similar to Saturday, where he plays in that number 10 and he's almost got that free role to link play and roam and create and drift into the box rather than be the main man in the box. And you have 2 main strikers fighting out above him, beyond him. So what I'm saying is buying another striker to come in that can fight it out with Yoane Wissa to start ahead of Nick Woltemade. So you've got your main striker, you've got Nick Woltemade in the 10, and then every other part of that position of the rest of the pitch is what it is, to fit around that system. Because for me, I watched that first half against Bournemouth and I thought we were really potent with it. It maybe didn't suit other positions like the midfield, and we played more of like a sort of a double pivot to kind of combat that. But maybe that's what we look at in the summer. I'm just giving suggestions here, and I'm saying it very particularly because I want Nick Woltemade to work. I want him to work at Newcastle United. So I'm thinking, what do we need to do to make that work? And I just want to make the viewers clear that I'm not talking about January. This is very much going to be a summer job, because I don't think we're going to do loads and loads of business this month. I think we'll get a couple of players in, maybe one at least, but there'll be defensive reinforcements, in my opinion. I think what we do in the summer is make it work so Nick Woltemade has a place and a role in the team, because what you've then got is if you go and get another striker, and I'm not going to give names out, it could be, we get a proper top striker, a first choice striker that we want, and we bring him in, we put him alongside Yoane Wissa, and we go, right, we're going to play this system where Nick Woltemade is that guy, that link guy in the middle. We've got our wingers out wide. We've got maybe a double pivot in that midfield, whoever that is up for argument's sake. And you guys are there to run beyond Nick Woltemade in. He's there to create. And when Nick Woltemade's not there and available, we can revert back to the 4-3-3, and you guys are the ones that are making those runs in and behind, like our old striker did. And we've now then got two very clear systems that work. One that works for Nick Woltemade and one that works for our old style, for Eddie Howe's classic 4-3-3 style.
Yeah.
And then what you've got is two opportunities to make it work. So you ultimately need centre midfielders that can play in a double pivot. You ultimately need two strikers of equal quality that can play that role beyond Nick Woltemade. The wingers are the wingers. Look, we'd love another right winger, but it ain't happening. I don't think so anyway. And then you do whatever you do with the rest of the team. But that is the key to get him working. Because I'll be honest with that, I don't see him. I know we made Isak into a better striker, but I just don't see Nick Woltemade ever being the striker that we need to be fighting Champions League football, top 6 every year. I just don't think he's going to be that guy. And that's nothing against him. It's just that our system currently doesn't suit him, and we need to find a way to make it work.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds to me, Pete, and Daz, I don't know if you agree with this. It sounds to me like we're talking about a 4-2-3-1. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think, thinking logically about it, and it's another option, isn't it? I'm not the manager. I certainly wouldn't have a clue how to set up tactically like Eddie Howe. I'm not suggesting for one moment I've got that qualification, but even if it was setting up in a 4-2-3-1 and having Nick Woltemade in the 10 behind the main striker, as you were talking about, Pete, we've got a fantastic Lewis Hall there at left back. Somebody who's equally, very, very comfortable on the ball in midfield. Could he push up and join that midfield pivot too? Could Tino Livramento at the right, if we've still got him, could he be a player who could tuck in Louis Miley, if he's playing right back, tuck in and become that midfield free? You can alternate as the game goes on, can't you? But I think it's very, very clear that we do need two up top, i.e. two options. So bringing in a third striker is certainly an option. And I think as well, it's clear that, to get the very, very best out of Nick Woltemade, we need to probably change up this current system, because you boys have both said it. There's a clear change in the way that we operate when we've got Yoane Wissa playing in the 9 and Nick Woltemade playing in the 9. Whilst they both play the same position, they're not offering you the same thing, which means you're going to have to change up the way you play. Daz, I wanted to ask you very quick, mate. This was going to be
before you do.
Go on, mate.
Before you do, Chris, because I forget my answer to this question first, because I wanted to answer this. I see the three possible scenarios. One, what you said there, 4-2-3-1, play to Nick Woltemade's strengths, have him in the number 10. That would mean then you'd have two pacey strikers in playing the number 9 position. Option 2, we stick with 4-3-3. It would meant that maybe Nick Woltemade was a panic buy, and we sell him to Bayern Munich, who still ultimately I think he's still going to eventually end up there. Maybe even after, if he has a brilliant World Cup, that's maybe a possibility too. 3 is maybe in the summer we are looking at a different manager. Maybe as in like maybe Eddie Howe will take up an England job. Maybe there's something. Maybe the season falls apart, and we do look at something different in the summer. I don't know, but there's I kind of see 3 different scenarios of it playing out. Sorry,
no, mate. This was good. This was the second part of the question I wanted to ask you both while we're talking about Nick Woltemade. DXLE says, question for you, gentlemen. After half of the season seeing him, what is Nick Woltemade's true market value in your eyes? Now, funnily enough, I did see an image the other day. I forget where it was from. If anyone in the chat can tell me, please do. But it was suggesting that Nick Woltemade's price had gone like that. And certain someone who we were talking about before, his price had gone like that, which is, realistic, I suppose. But let's play out your option 2, Daz. So Bayern Munich come knocking on the door in the summer after a successful World Cup. How much are Newcastle asking for Nick Woltemade?
Well, he'd have to have a successful World Cup for them to pay more than we did, because they on twice they've come out and said they're kind of laughing at us the price we paid for them. So or the deal would have to be so much up front and then bonuses like add-ons to so that we would to entice us to sell, because they're not going to want to kind of admit that they were wrong and vice versa. So. I think his true value is more so 60, 65, but as a number 10, more so than pushing higher into 80s for a number 9. So I think around that kind of mark. But if I'm selling to Bayern and he has a good World Cup, I'm going higher than we paid, but that would be more on the add-ons that he probably would achieve with Bayern, like win the Bundesliga and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Pete, just before I move on, what price are you asking for Nick Woltemade as of right now?
I think it'd be around the same as what we bought it for, to be honest. Maybe a little bit higher, because he's actually adjusted to scoring goals in the Premier League, which is key. It's not necessarily, he's not just adjusted to our team just yet, but he's scoring goals in the Premier League, and that adds value to any player. If you can do it in the Premier League, then your value goes up. So yeah, I would say maybe just a little bit above. So what we bought him for 69 million. So I'd probably be saying anywhere between 75 and 80 right now at this point. His value's definitely gone up to that. If he does go to Bayern, and I do think he'll be at Bayern at some point, I won't be within a couple of years. It might sound horrible to say. Within a couple of years, I think he will be playing at Bayern Munich, because Bayern Munich have got a striker overhaul to happen in the next couple of years with Harry Kane. I think Harry Kane's release clause this month is like 57 million. And I think it goes down again in the summer. So there's no guarantee unless he signs a new contract, that is. So there's no guarantee he's going to be at Bayern next year or the year after. So therefore, they are going to need to look at someone else. And Germany's number 1 striker will end up at Bayern Munich at some point. What I will say is that I have his value at 75 to 80, and some people might not agree because he doesn't fit our system. But it doesn't matter whether he fits our system or not. He's still a very good player, and he's a top technical player that has come to Newcastle and adjusted like that to the lifestyle, to the league, to the way the English play their football, which is different to Germany, and he's adjusted and he's scored goals, even in a team that is not fully settled in yet. You can't knock that, regardless of the fact that he's not quite fitting our system. He's still done that. It's what he scored 10. I think he scored 10 goals this season as we got to the halfway point. That's, for a striker that's just adjusting, that's not bad. And there's no reason why between now and the end of the season he can't get another 5 to 8 goals. And if you're sitting here at the end of the season going 18 goals at the end of his maiden season in the Premier League for Newcastle United, you're going, that's all right. That's all right. So yeah, I would say anywhere between 75 and 80. And yeah, that's where I'm at.
I'd want to keep him if we were playing 4-2, 3-1. He's perfect for that sitting there. So,
I think that's what we all want. We all want Nick Woltemade to succeed at Newcastle United. That's what we want. And this is the thing. It's a case of, if it's not going to work as in being a striker, what do we need to do to change it? And I know that Eddie Howe said, or gave the impression that formation that he played against Bournemouth on Saturday wasn't necessarily going to be readily used again. Well, I would revise that. It's up to him. He's the manager. He's the main guy that makes the decisions. But if you want Nick Woltemade to be as effective as he was in that game against Bournemouth, up until he had to move up front when Wissa went off, then you make that change. Because Wissa wasn't great in that, which is probably why Eddie Howe didn't like it. But that was just one game. Wissa might well adjust to that system. But as I said before, if you bring in another striker who can play that system, it could be golden.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, Trophy, I see you put your comment in there, which Prem team would buy Woltemade for 75 to 80 million, having a laugh. We're not suggesting the Premier League team's going to buy Nick Woltemade. We're talking about him going to Germany. It's not about him going to another. He's not going to another Prem team. I agree with you on that. He won't be going to another Prem team. He'd be going back to Germany.
That's his next move. His next move will be Germany, and his next move will probably be to Bayern Munich. Well, I just don't see him staying in the Premier League once he leaves Newcastle.
Yeah. Anyway, right, let's move on, boys. Okay, so we've had a super chat from Insanity2968. Thank you very much, Insanity. Top man. Insanity says, this is a reality check. Lucky as fuck we've been. Pete, would you agree with that?
You create your own luck. I would say, have the performances been amazing? No, they haven't. And I think even the managers admitted that. The players even admitted that. Dan Burn before the game admitted that the performances haven't been great, but we've been getting results. And sometimes you make your own luck. And we have, and we've fought tooth and nail to get the 4 wins that we did before tonight's game. Now, losing to Man City is no disgrace. Man City are a fantastic football club, and they're a fantastic team of players. They've got their firepower tonight, and who they were able to bring off the bench: Haaland, Semenyo, Doku, Foden, and Bernardo Silva, ultimately playing as number 10s, and then they go and bring Reinders and Cherki bench. I mean, come on,
Rodney.
And just putting the Ballon d'Or winner and just dropping him in there when they're 1-0 up and going, just see as the game out, mate. Just the Ballon d'Or winner coming off the bench. I mean, come on. It's no disgrace to lose to them at all. And so it's not a reality check. Okay, I'll give you that. I'll give you a reality check. My reality check was tonight is that the boys were tired. The boys have played a lot of football and they looked tired. That was my reality check. Maybe it wasn't yours, Insanity. Maybe it wasn't Chris or Daz's. I don't know. But my reality check tonight was that these boys were tired. It was one game too far. They didn't exert the amount of intensity and drive and energy that for a full game that we intended and we wanted. That's not down to them. It's just down to the fact that they played so many minutes.
Yeah. Dazzler, couple for you, and there's a name here that you will recognise, Daz. I know you were banging the drum for this guy. Jono says, in hindsight, Samu might have been the better option. He is more like Isak than Woltemade. Have you still got one eye on Samu, Daz? Samu?
I just checked his stats there, but when I saw the name coming through again, I don't know. I think it's not definitely not going to happen in January. Whether it depends what way the cards fall in the summer. He would cost a large outlay to bring him to Newcastle. It could be if Bayern did come in for Nick Woltemade. I don't know. We'll have to strengthen a number of positions. So. But yeah, it's a fair point, yeah, Jono. But we're not slating in Nick Woltemade here at all because he is a quality player. It's just how do we get the best out of him?
But even Samu's not like, in my opinion, he's not like Isak. He's a different type of player to Isak. So then you've got Samu and you've got Woltemade that neither play like Isak. Neither of them do. That's why Wissa's the closest to Isak, and even he's not a like for like. Even he plays differently to Alexander Isak. Like Alexander Isak is very unique. He was a very unique striker, which is why it worked so well. He was so unique, and I think people are just starting to realize that now. And obviously, it hurt the way he left and everything else. For me, I'm beyond that now. Like we move forward, but he was very unique as a striker, and I don't think you're going to get another Alexander Isak again that can do all of the things that he can do, because I don't think, as we kept saying all last season, there's no one else in world football that does what he does and plays like him, and that's just the reality. So He was the nearest, but even he's different. Even Ekatike is different in the way in which he plays. Like, there's no one that plays like he's at because he is unique. When he's on his game and he's playing week in, week out, there's no one that plays like him. Ekatike would have been better for our system. Ekatike and Wissa would have smashed it at Newcastle United. There's no doubt about it. But it ain't happening. It is what it is. We move on. We'll have to look and play in a different way. It is what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah, it is, mate. You're right. You're right. We've had another super chat from Transfer Tony. Transfer Tony, thank you so much. Tony Beasley, big shout out to you, mate. And he raises a great point. Wolves game is huge. We need to win. Obviously, we're in pretty good form in the Premier League. We need to keep that going. So yeah, I totally agree, Tony. The Wolves game is huge. And Pete, I'm going to come to you with this one because it's I must admit, that's what I was thinking towards the end of the game, and especially when the ball hit the back of the net and it went 2-0. My first thought was similar to Jumpers for Goalposts, and Jumpers for Goalposts says, question, lads, where do you see our season going if you take away the potential of exiting the League Cup or the Carabao Cup? We still have the FA Cup, the Champions League and the Premier League. We have so much still to play for. So the question is, Pete, that just to give you that little bit of background, the real question is, where's it gone? Where's it gone? It's linked to this. It is linked to this. Where is it? Yeah, here we go. To coin a phrase, we didn't deserve to lose 2-0. Serious question now. Do we play a second string in the return and focus on the league, Champions League and FA Cup?
No, I mean we can joke about it because obviously it's 2-0, but the reality is no. We give it on. We play to the end. That's what Newcastle United do. We'll play the strongest team we possibly can, and we'll go for it, and we'll try and salvage whatever we can. Although I think it will be too far at this point. For me, the thing about it is, the point is that there's still so much to play for, but in a month's time. It might not be because you've got the League Cup second leg in February, you've got the Champions League playoffs that I expect us to be in playing out in February, and then you've got the Aston Villa game, and there's been the fixtures running around on social media and our lineup. So after Wolves, Villa, and PSV. From the Liverpool game onwards, the amount of away games we have and the amount of big games we have all the way through to the end of Feb is just absolutely monumental. Our February is just an absolute horror show. And the pictures that have gone out there on social media today, like, it isn't even including the playoffs for the Champions League. And they have in there as well. So the amount of games we have to play in February, or from the 31st of January, which is the Liverpool game, the amount of games that we have to play is just horrific. The amount of away games that we have to play against some of these teams is equally horrific. It's just a nightmare month. And so, like, I'm looking ahead and I'm just thinking, by the end of February, we could be just playing Premier League football. That's a distinct possibility. And I don't want it to be that way, but it could absolutely be a distinct possibility that we're out of the Carabao Cup, that we're out of the FA Cup, and that we're out of the Champions League. I don't want it to be that, but with the amount of fixtures we play and the fact that our players are running on empty at the moment right now, I fear of what it could be in February, and that's why we need signings. It's critical.
Yeah. I agree with your point.
I don't know if you found the image. I've got it if you want it.
I saw that going on today actually as well. But I would go at this a different way. I would wait until closer to the time to see where we are, see how many more injuries we have, to see if we bring in anyone as well, a bit of strength, maybe even some loan signings, because also. It's not going to matter for this one. It doesn't matter who we bring in. We're not going to turn this around. But we could buy someone that could if they had played in the Premier League, they like Semenyo, they could play in this game. But anyway, that's irrelevant. But yeah, I'd consider playing a second string team depending on what's happening at that time and what kind of how many bodies we have available.
Yeah,
I've just got the pictures here.
Oh, go on, Peter.
Up on the screen. So you got that's got from PSG. So PSG on the 28th, Liverpool on the 31st. Then you got Man City, which is the second leg, on the 4th. On the 7th, you got Brentford at home, which is probably our easiest game. Then you're away at Tottenham. Then you're away at Villa in the FA Cup. Then you're away at Man City in the Premier League. That's not including the 2 playoff Champions League matches that you've got, and we won't know who we've got just yet. That month, or that month worth of football, from the 28th to the 21st of Feb, is just absolutely mad.
It's crazy, isn't it, Pete? When I'm looking at the screen now, and no disrespect, but you wipe out Brentford. If you said to anybody, you've got to play PSG away, Liverpool away, Man City away, Tottenham away, Villa away, and Man City away, all in the space of 24 days? It's mental.
It's
absolutely mental.
And you add Brentford in that because you're playing fifth place currently. Brentford, they might not stay there, but currently you're playing Brentford that are 5th in the table, that beat us at their patch. I know Tottenham aren't great. Daz7987 has just put in the chat, I don't fear Spurs away, and nor should we. But it's still a difficult game to go.
It's a big game.
It's still a big game. And when you're going through that and you're literally flagging because you're playing on the Saturday and then on the Tuesday you're playing a midweek game, you're like, Jesus Christ, man. It's like it's honestly, it's a nightmare set of fixtures. I fear what our injury record's going to be like coming out of that. I fear how much energy our players are going to have after that. I think it's not long after that we have the international break, and that is going to be a welcome break for a chunk of our squad. And actually, it might not be a lot of our squad because you've got Malik Chow on international duty now, Nick Woltemade, probably got Lewis Hall going on international duty as well. I don't know. I just think it's mad. This is going to be, probably the reason why I'm saying it, lads, is that I think as fans are probably going to have to be very kind of grounded in the next month. The next month to sort of like 6 to 8 weeks, we're probably have to be very grounded and maybe a little bit understanding that this is just a nightmare set of fixtures. I don't know.
Yeah,
like
do you know what?
Tonight.
Yeah. Do you know what? That leads me a little bit. I've got 2 super chats, but I just want to quickly lean into this one very, very quickly, only because it kind of touches on what we've just been speaking about. And it's Iron Monkey again. Iron Monkey says, "Is Elanga becoming unplayable?" Feels like the game is over. The last few games he's been brought on, like playing with 10 men. Now, touching on what we've just been said, Daz, I feel like Anthony Elanga's going to have to be given football based on fixtures like that. We need to keep that squad rotation going, and obviously Anthony Elanga currently has a squad shirt at Newcastle United this season. So I think he's got to be playing football because we can't keep asking the same players to keep coming to the well, can we?
Yeah, there's plenty of games there. He can try and play himself into contention for next season. But look, as we said before, we are kind of stuck because of the outlay, when it would never recoup the same figure back for him. So we've got to make Eddie's got to make him better, or make him at least as good as he was before. He's done it in the past. Let's see. It's a big job though there.
It is. Pete, we've had another super chat from Transfer Tony. Thank you, Transfer Tony. I love calling him Transfer Tony. Pete, I'm talking about. I'm giving this one to you because obviously you touched on him earlier. Tony says, had the Rat played for us tonight, we wouldn't have lost. Do you agree with that? I mean, obviously it's all hindsight, it's all retrospect, but I get where Tony's coming from. You know, do you agree with that statement from Tony?
Yeah, to a point. I think Isak in our team that was playing last season, I think we go on and beat Man City. I think we go and beat that Man City team tonight. I think we at least score in that game and ask them a question. But it's like I say, this is a different Newcastle team now. This is not the same Newcastle team as last season. It can't be. When you lose a player of his ability, it can't be the same Newcastle team. It is a very different team.
Yeah,
that is for sure. Did any of you notice how leggy Sandro Tonali looked tonight when he came off the bench? I thought he looked really, really leggy. I'm not saying he played bad, but he just looked tired. When he came off the bench, he looked tired. So even some of his recovery runs weren't great. Like getting back in, like on the ball and stuff, he was fine, but he just looked really tired. And I just don't know. I didn't know if anyone else noticed that at all. I just got that feeling after a few minutes of him being on.
Yeah, to be fair, it's not that I'm disagreeing with you, Pete, but no, I didn't notice. But in fairness, it wasn't something that I picked up on. But it would kind of allude to the reason why he didn't start. And so maybe you're spot on, mate, in terms of, you know, maybe he's not quite there, and maybe the last game took it all out of him. Who knows? And fatherhood, of course. Maybe that's playing its part. Who knows? Yeah.
Chris, before you move, I just want to go back on that one from Transfer Tony there.
Yeah.
If Isak had been there, we would have won the game. No, he has a broken leg. He wouldn't be able to play, Tony. So no, he wouldn't have done. It would have made a massive difference. Yeah. But Tony, tune in tomorrow. A transfer show maybe tomorrow. So be all right to feel to that one.
Dazzler, Insanity is back. Insanity, thank you so much again for your super chat. Insanity says, I think he's referring to Pete's comment earlier. He's saying, "You're right, lads. We've played a lot of games recently, but Tonali, Elanga, and Woltemade are coming off the bench is over 180 million." So I think Insanity is responding in reply to Pete when he was talking about Rodri and Cherki and you know. So we have got that depth, and we have got, you know, players coming on who cost a considerable amount of money, but you know, I'm sure you'll agree, the players that Man City brought on were incredibly good. But what are your thoughts on what Insanity said, Daz?
Yeah, look, we're not getting the impact. Like Barnes came off the bench and he put in a few crosses. He didn't really get to get his shot off. He did link with Big Nick to set him up, but yeah, look, we haven't. We've said Eddie Howe said it. We've said it. We haven't seen the best Tonali possible. We did against Bournemouth. He was playing, I think it was that game. He was playing a bit more like himself, or it was one of the games recently anyway. Langa, it hasn't happened at all yet, and Big Nick, we've just made a lot of comments about Big Nick already. So yeah, we have a lot of assets on the bench, but yeah, we're not getting the same kind of hit when they do come on.
Yeah, I agree. Right, boys, we've got two more questions. I'm going to give one to Pete and I'm going to give one to you, Dazzler. Okay, so Pete, and this is a sad one. I think it's a sad one. Guibazera is back in the chat. Loaded Mag Ultra Guibazera. He says to you, Pete, it saddens me to say this, but is Trippier done? Or I think he's saying Trippier is done. Do you think Trippier is done?
Yeah, I mentioned as much at the weekend. He's not the same player. Kieran Trippier would be playing in this game 110%. He'd been starting this game if he was, or still had something to offer. The fact that he's played Louis Maidi there as a 19-year-old that doesn't play right back tells you everything you need to know, really, is that he's not the same player. He comes on, he does a couple of decent things, but he just doesn't look right. It doesn't look right at all. And yeah, he will be. I think he's done with Newcastle United. Certainly, being a regular player, he might see out the season and just be a bit part here and there. Come on and do a role and a job for the team. But yeah, long term, he'll leave at the end of the season. And you know what? He should leave at the end of the season and be thanked and be appreciated for what he did, because he single-handedly turned Newcastle United around as a club by coming to sign for us when he didn't have to. He had no right to come to Newcastle United, sitting bottom of the league, and he did so. So as much as he's maybe done now as an active player, starting regularly for Newcastle United, we've still got to appreciate the role that he played in our transformation, because he was unbelievable in that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, quick question as well, Pete. A little follow-up one, just sort of our thoughts at the time. Kevin Trippier came on for Bruno Guimarães. Who got the captain's armbands? Because it wasn't Trippier. And I was thinking, who did he give the armband to? Because I expected him to give it to Trippier, and he didn't. And then I thought, oh, could it be Bain? And I'm like, well, obviously it can't be Bain. So who would have got the captain's armband? Did anyone notice?
So I didn't see who was wearing it, but I did notice in previous games that Joe Linton had been wearing it. Okay. So it could well be that Joe Linton was wearing it and maybe then swapped over at a later date. I don't know that for sure, but I have seen in other games where Joe Linton was wearing the armband. So therefore, I'm assuming that he was probably the one. Daz7987 said it was Joe Linton.
Oh, it was Joe Linton. Right, okay.
Yeah, that was just what I assumed in that. But yeah, someone else mentioned about, and I'm going off topic here, someone mentioned about, and I saw it as well, that Lewis Hall went down with cramp right near the end of the game.
Yeah, he did.
Bruno Guimarães going off. These players have played ridiculous amounts of minutes, and they're going to need to be rotated out at some point. I think I saw one of the comments, and they were absolutely right saying that, because we do not want a Lewis Hall hamstring again that's out for 5 to 6 weeks. Like we've got
Can't afford it.
We are back to square one. We've got no other left back. I know there's talk about Alex Murphy, but I'm sorry. Like if Eddie Howe wanted him, let's be real though. If Alex Murphy had a future at Newcastle United, he'd be playing in these matches. He'd be getting a minute off the bench. I think it says a lot, the fact that he's not even coming on. Like when Lewis Hall's flagging, even if it's at 1-0, you bring him on just to give Lewis Hall a rest. He's not even doing that. And I think it says everything about where Eddie Howe sees him right now. And so effectively we've got one left back, and we haven't got a viable replacement in Eddie Howe's eyes, it seems, and we can't afford to lose him. Like I don't. Like, he was acting against right, and he's still giving that party line of, oh, we need to evaluate, blah blah blah. And I know they're playing the percentages. I see what the club are doing and Eddie Howe's doing. So people are getting mad because he's not saying we're going to sign. He's playing that party line of saying, oh, we'll evaluate, because he doesn't want clubs to know that they're actively looking. But I fully expect to see a couple of defenders coming this month, because if we don't, it is criminal that we haven't improved this team. We have to.
Well, and that brings me to the last question, Daz. Obviously, we all heard the news today that Tino Livramento, thank you, Tom Dixon, for pointing this out. Tino Livramento has been ruled out for up to 8 weeks with a hamstring injury. What happens next, in your opinion, Daz?
Give the Eddie Howe answer. What happens next is Lewis Miley plays at right back. We have Kraft as well. Kraft probably, I don't know how far away he is, but and we have Trips. They can play right back. But what the answer we would like to hear is, we're looking at defensive options and what we look to strengthen in this January window. But I don't know what happens next. Tune in for the rest of this window to find out.
Yeah, and hopefully we do have some news. But yeah, that is it for the questions, boys.
That is it for the questions. That is it for the show. Smash that like button on the way out. We are back tomorrow. Keep an eye out for the information on that to drop. I don't think we'll even bother playing out with the music tonight, boys. We'll just say goodbye and leave it at that. Catch you on the next one. Thanks, everyone.